Greetings, Doc Ock coming to you live on a brand new day, doing it in a better way. All right, so let's see what we got today. We're going to do a little exploring today, see where we end up at. Proverb for today is familiarity breeds contempt. Distance breeds respect. Yes, that's what I use all the time when I'm in school. Keep my distance. Don't let them little buggers get too close. Stay in your lane. That's right. All right, and that's a proverb from Niger. Now, for the poem today, I got a short one for you today. Short poem. Let's see. From The Mind of Gil Scott Heron. So far, so good. That's how we doing today. Come see, come saw. Oh, left my glasses. I'm going to have to go glassless today. Let's see how we can do this here. This one is called, I think very appropriately, The Vulture. Standing in the ruins of another black man's life or flying through the valley separating day and night. I am deaf, cried the vulture, for the people of the light. Charon brought his raft from the sea that sails on souls and saw the scavenger departing, taking warm hearts to the cold. He knew the ghetto was a haven for the meanest creature ever known. In a wilderness of heartbreak and a desert of despair, evil's clarion of justice shrieks a cry of naked terror. Taking babies from their mamas and leaving grief behind beyond compare. So if you see the vulture coming, flying circles in your mind, remember there's no escaping, for he will follow close behind. Only promise me a battle for your soul and mine. All right, promise me a battle. Don't go down without a fight. Even if that vulture starts to take flight, you got to stay the course and keep up the fight. So here we go, moving on. Today, we started this. This is this month is dedicated to the West and Africans or Black people in the West. Some people ask me, why do I use the word Black? Why don't I just use African? Because pretty much they're interchangeable. It just depends on, and it's all from someone else's perspective, because we never called our land, our motherland, Africa per se. There were parts of it that were called that. There was a province up in Libya that was called Africa by the Romans. That's why you have Scipio Africanus. But that whole land was not necessarily called that. I don't know what it was called, but that ain't what I know. It wasn't that. It's another word. So, and it's not Al-Kibulan either. Okay, because if you look that up, that's a whole different story. We'd have to take me a day or two to just break that down. But at any rate, Black happens to be the trait that Black people have that was most obvious to and in contrast to white people. When they looked and said, he's Black. First thing is they noticed was that we were Black. They didn't call us big nose or big lips or big head, or anything. It was just straight Black. That's the first thing they noticed. But different people look at others in different ways. So that's how they look at it. And so we use that word because it still describes us. And every other word, people of color, Negro, etc., kind of relates back to that, although that people of color one is kind of sketchy. So just by way of explanation for those of you who may have been wondering, maybe not. All right, now let's go ahead and get to this story. This is the story of Esteban. Sometimes they call him Estebanico. They call him by different names. Okay, just like we were just talking about Black. Yeah, we're back to that. All right, so let's go on here. Now, this story takes place between 1528 and 1539. So right after the after the writing of the book about Queen Calafia. Okay, so we are going kind of in chronological order right now at this particular point. So let's go ahead. We're just going to do a little reading here. I got a little bit of stuff I want to read in here. Let's start off with this. This is from the prologue of the book. The trial. It was hot, and the tall, bearded man had been walking all day. He walked slowly now, but he did not stop. On the flat tableland, there were no trees to offer shade. Ahead of him, the gray walls of the town shimmered in the heat. Behind him came hundreds of men, women, and children. They had followed him here all the way from their homes in the valley far to the south. So he actually, at this time, he was in the land of California. In the town lived other Indians. Now these people stopped working in the fields and around their homes. They stood on the flat roofs of their houses and watched the crowd coming across the treeless land. They did not know these people from the south. What did their coming mean? When these tall men had almost reached the town or pueblo, the elders dropped ladders over the wall and climbed down. They stared at the leader. He looked like no one they had ever seen, for he was black. Now, this is from the perspective of other people, not the Native Americans necessarily. His skin was as black as soot from a campfire, and his lips were swollen as though from eating chili peppers. His beard was thick and curly. The town elders wondered at his strange appearance. Still, they invited him into the pueblo with a few of his followers. The others built campfires below the wall. There, they waited for their leader. The black man told the elders a strange story. He was called Esteban el Negro, which negro means black. We're back to that again. Or Stephen the Black, sometimes known as Estebanico, which is little Stephen, the diminutive. He knew the secrets of the Earth Mother and the Sky Father. He had crossed a great ocean and climbed many mountains. He had come from the land beyond the sunrise. Hundreds and hundreds of white men were coming after him, the black man said. They wanted gold and emeralds. If the Pueblo people gave them these things, the white men would go their way in peace, although Montezuma found that not to be the case. If not, the white men would take everything. They had sticks that shot lightning and made thunder. The elders could not believe this story. Could there truly be people as pale as wind clouds or sticks that made thunder? The elders frowned. No one in all that land had ever seen such people. This strange black-skinned man must be a spy from an enemy tribe. Maybe he was some kind of sorcerer. Certainly there was something dangerous about him. The elders did not want him in their pueblo. No. They led the black man to a square house just beyond the pueblo wall. Its doors, like the doors of the houses within the pueblo itself, opened from the roof. Esteban went down the ladder, and the town elders pulled it up behind him. He was their prisoner. When they found out who he was and why he had come with all those strangers, then they would know what to do with him. All this happened more than 400 years ago, and no one has yet learned Esteban's whole story. Probably no one ever will. But from legends told by Indians and from reports written by white men who knew him, historians and geographers and anthropologists too know much about his adventures in North America. Here is the story of the Pueblo people were trying to learn. Now the question is, where did this person, Esteban, where did he really come from? How did he get where he was when we were just now reading? In the beginning, now that I have given an account of the ships, it may be well to record also who those are and where from whom it pleased God to rescue all these dangers and hardships. The fourth man was Estebanico, an Arab Negro from Azamur. Now, so you heard that, right? Azamur, right? So there's Moor in there. So Esteban apparently was a Moor, and as they're describing a Moor here, they're describing him as both Arab and Negro. Just like you can have Hispanic people that are still black. You can have Puerto Ricans. You got black Puerto Ricans, and then you got some white Puerto Ricans. So you got some black Cubans, and you got some white Cubans. Now, culturally, that it could be a whole different thing. But in terms of their skin colors, you have these different varieties. And in this case, we're looking at an Arab Negro or Negro. With these words, Esteban's name became part of American history, and these words tell all that is known of his early life. Azamur is a city on the northwest coast of Africa. It stands at the mouth of a large, slow-moving river, which makes a good harbor. In 1513, the Portuguese captured Azamur. They held it all during Esteban's life. As a small boy, Esteban could see the Portuguese warships anchored in the harbor. Beyond the ships, waves rolled in from the Atlantic Ocean. The waves made a long, foaming line as they broke against the reddish waters of the river. But often, the warships headed out across the breaking waves into the ocean. They attacked Spanish ships carrying gold from the Americas. They protected their own ships carrying slaves north to Spanish markets, for the Spaniards paid well for slaves. They needed them to work in their new colonies across the Atlantic. The Portuguese made Esteban a slave. He was probably taken to Spain as soon as he was able to do a man's work, at the age of 10 or 12 years old. He lived in Spain for a short time at least, because his Spanish master, Andres Dorantes, said that Esteban was a Christian. Spanish rulers in those days insisted that everyone living in their country become a Catholic. In June of 1527, Esteban sailed with his master to the New World. They were among 600 others, mostly soldiers and future settlers, all crammed into the 5 ships commanded by the conquistador Panfilo de Narvaez. The ships landed first at Hispaniola, which is also known as Haiti. Okay, Haiti and the Dominican Republic are on that same island, but the island is called, the whole island is called Hispaniola, where Christopher Columbus had started the first Spanish colony in the New World. Then they stopped in Cuba to get supplies and to make repairs. Unlike many other slaves, Esteban was not taken off to work in the plantations of either colony. He was needed to carry supplies into the wilderness that was North America. His master was one of Narvaez's captains, and they were sailing on to explore the mainland. Narvaez had the commission from the King of Spain to explore, conquer, and settle all the unknown land from the Florida Peninsula to the Rio Grande. No Spaniard started on an expedition without such a commission. 8 years earlier, Alonso de Pineda, an explorer looking for a way to the Pacific, had made a rough chart of the coast, but no European or African either, as far as they know, knew what lay beyond the coast. The chart maker had heard rumors of 7 cities to the north. That's the fabled 7 cities of Cibola. Hernan Cortez had heard the same stories when he conquered Mexico City. And that brings us right back to Queen Calafia. With each retelling, the cities became richer and grander. It was said that even the streets shone with emeralds and the rivers ran over golden sands. So we talked about that before as well. Every place that Europeans discovered, quote unquote, they always were looking for whatever wealth they could find there to extract and turn into items to wear, jewelry, clothing, mainly jewelry though. Okay. So the crowned heads of Europe, all of the crowned heads of Europe have crowns made of African gold because they didn't have any gold or very little gold in Europe. I tell you what, here's what I want you to do. When you get a chance, Google gold mines and see how many you find in Europe. I bet you find very few, if any, because they were resource poor. They didn't even have spices. That's why they had the Spice Islands, and they were going. Columbus was trying to get to India to get some spice to put on his rice. But okay, wait a minute, they didn't grow rice either. Oh yeah, that's right. That came from somewhere else too. I guess to put on his potatoes. It's about the only thing they really grew up there were potatoes. And they, there's a whole thing about the potato famine over that, but we're not going into that one right now. Meanwhile, we're going to continue on. We're going to be dealing with explorers all week. We'll deal with Esteban. We may read a little bit more about Esteban, but we're also going to read about some other African explorers of America. African explorers of America. We already talked about the Olmecs. We talked about the mythical Queen Calafia. Now we're moving on to these explorers. Before we even get to any kind of slave ships coming, we're still 100 years prior to the first Africans coming here in any kind of a ship that might have been called a slave ship even. All right. So we hope that everybody's getting something out of this. And if you have any comments or questions, feel free to drop us a comment or a question, and we will respond in kind in our own sweet time. Meanwhile, this is Doc Ock signing out at noon and 9. Peace out now.